So, Bradley Beal got traded today, and it managed to ruin my day in multiple ways. Let's get into it. Real quick before I get in this video, be sure to subscribe for 3 videos a week. Also drop a like. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference in how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. So in case you were curious how it ruined my day, unfortunately the trade went down 2 minutes after uploading a second channel video, which absolutely tanked it. So if you could go watch that, it'd be appreciated. But also, of course, the trade went down on Father's Day, and it happened as I was on the way to dinner with my dad. So of course, wouldn't be able to record the video initially. I guess every other NBA YouTuber that uploaded a right reaction immediately just doesn't care about their dad. I'm joking, to be clear, but either way, I want to talk about this trade. And when the trade rumor of him to Phoenix came out, I was very adamant that it was a stupid idea, and my opinion has not changed on that really. It has softened a little bit given the context of what Phoenix actually traded, but I still feel like Phoenix, as you can tell from this title, will regret this trade, and I don't even think it will take particularly long for that to be the case. I think by the time we've seen this team in a year, we're gonna be like, yeah, that trade was a disaster. Anything's possible, and I'm well within possibility that I would be wrong. So just putting that out there. This is just one man's opinion, but let me explain why I hate this trade so much. And really, I think what I hate even more is the discourse around it, because there are a lot of complex things about this trade, a lot of angles at it to look at, and I've seen so many people boil this down in such a simple way, and it's very bothersome to me, especially given the context of what we just saw in the 2023 NBA playoffs. When we saw the Phoenix Suns play the Denver Nuggets, and it was very obvious to us that Denver was the better team. Even when Phoenix did manage to win those 2 games, it felt like they were just absolute outliers because Devin Booker was on something crazy this entire postseason. But otherwise, it was very obvious that the Phoenix Suns just were not good enough. Why was that? It was because they did not have enough depth and they did not have enough defense. They also did not have enough players, period, who were play finishers, guys who could be catch and shoot guys, lob options, pick and roll options. You'd think DeAndre Ayton would be that, but of course he played like shit for this entire playoffs. So what it was very obvious they needed wasn't Bradley Beal. Now, I do want to say that because they did not trade DeAndre Ayton, who I still have some belief in, even if it was definitely shaken by this postseason, I do think it's possible either A, DeAndre Ayton is good for them, he has a bounce back year, and that's cool, or B, they don't keep him and they trade him for like 2 pretty solid role players. If you were to trade DeAndre for like 2 pretty good role players and sign a few guys who like can maybe cut it out for like 15 minutes of a playoff rotation, then you can sell me on this not being the worst thing ever, given that, if you don't know, the original trade was a very weak package. The Washington Wizards got back only Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, and some second-round picks. And yeah, for your franchise star, that absolutely blows. But of course, this was a new front office dealing with a contract that a previous front office gave to Bradley Beal that included a no trade option, something that no star even gets unless you're Kobe, pretty much. But for some reason, they gave it to Bradley Beal. Anywho, the overarching point, this could have been worse. I think if DeAndre Ayton was a part of the deal, like, you can flip DeAndre, or DeAndre can potentially be good basketball, whether it's him as a player or what he gets you in value in return. I still think Phoenix can get something decent out of him. But even with that, trading for Bradley Beal is crippling for the Phoenix Suns. And what bothers me, like I said, is people making this so simple, and specifically making it as simple as Bradley Beal is a very good player, so automatically a good deal, when it is so much deeper than that. And I think we saw from this 2023 postseason that star power does not trump a well-rounded basketball team. It does not trump having depth. It does not trump having defense. You can have as many star players as you like, but if those star players are not going to result in an overall good basketball team, it doesn't freaking matter. matter. And I strongly believe that Bradley Beal on this team will not result in a championship level team, which is of course what Phoenix is striving for. Will Phoenix be a good basketball team? Sure, no doubt about that. They were already good before they traded for Bradley Beal. That's almost kind of the point here, because Kevin Durant and Devin Booker is more than enough shot creation. What they needed was not Bradley Beal, who is himself basically just like a B+ version of Devin Booker. Like, why are you getting another guy who, like Kevin Durant and like Devin Booker, is an okay to good to sometimes even really good defender? Bradley Beal doesn't really ever get to really good, but he can be okay in the right setting. I don't believe he's going to be a complete defensive disaster like a lot of people do. That player also is an okay to good playmaker. Again, these guys can vary in this department, but for the most part, pretty good playmaking, but not first option lead playmaker type of deal. That's not the case for Devin Booker, nor is it for Bradley Beal, nor is it for Kevin Durant. It's basically a group of 3 secondary playmakers, which maybe can cultivate enough playmaking between the 3 of them, but it's not exactly ideal, I'd say that much. And it's also 3 players who like to take the same type of shots, the same general areas of the floor they like to operate in. All these guys are primarily mid-range shot creators who also shoot a decent amount of threes, but do not shoot a super high percentage of them. I know a lot of people have suggested maybe Bradley Beal can look more like the Ray Allen comparison that he was getting earlier on in his career, but the thing about that is Bradley Beal has not shot well from 3 in quite a long time. Over his last 3 seasons, he's taking 5 threes a game and shooting 34%. On that volume, on that percentage, he is a dead average shooter for a starting shooting guard. So I'm not impressed for that perspective. Devin Booker, he shot really well obviously in the playoffs, but for his career and for the last few years, pretty good. Definitely the best 3-point shooter of this group, but not necessarily the most exceptional one. And I have long said that Kevin Durant is one of the most overrated 3-point shooters in the entire history of this league. Still a good one, but not excellent. So we're talking about a bunch of guys who want to attack in the mid-range. That's primarily what they succeed at. And they don't put a ton of pressure on the rim either, just because they have that tendency to pull up given any opportunity to, and generally on most drives, pulling up is also an option. So for the most part, these guys play very similarly, just at different levels. Like Devin Booker and Kevin Durant may be equal level talents at this point and both play at a superstar level. And then Bradley Beal is the clear third option who does what they do, just a little bit worse. And yeah, it's an extra guy who can do good things. Again, I do think they're better than they were before with this move. But to actually win a championship, what they're doing is completely antithetical to that. Because here's the thing, Bradley Beal makes $46 million a year, upwards of 50 towards the end of the contract. If they choose to keep DeAndre Ayton, he makes $32 million, I think it is. Kevin Durant makes $46 million himself, and Devin Booker makes $36 million. I think combined, they make about $160 million between those 4 players. And this gets even worse because with the new CBA, there are far more consequences for going into the luxury tax, including, from what I understand, I'm not exactly an expert in this department, but from what I understand, it gets rid of your mid-level exception, which is an excellent way to get a good role player if you don't otherwise have cap space, but they are so overloaded that they have to sign exclusively minimum players. So for the rest of the roster being built here, other than a potential DeAndre Ayton trade, we're talking about, I don't even know if they could afford to bring Torrey Craig back, because I feel like he's proven to be such a good role player, he'll make more money than they can afford. And from there, like, you're signing aging veterans, you're signing young two-way players that you hope and pray could actually potentially break out to be some sort of rotation guy. One way or the other, you're taking extreme gambles on pretty much anybody that you would sign sign. They're not going to be exceptional players, and they're not going to be exceptional defenders, which I would say with this total core of Durant, Booker, and Beal being okay defensively, DeAndre Ayton being okay to a little bit better than okay defensively if he does stay, or again, even if he traded for 2 good defensive players and signed maybe one other one, like this still isn't going to be a good enough defense. And I don't even fully buy the notion that this would be some exceptional offense either, because while we saw with the Phoenix Suns, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant could make good offense themselves, they really were not doing a whole lot to make easy offense for their teammates. And the thing is, Bradley Beal isn't some exceptional playmaker either, so he's not going to come in there and make their teammates better. Other than just obvious passes to their teammates, these guys really don't improve the people around them. You know, you can maybe stretch out the quality of role players and have lacking in depth and still win if you have a player like Nikola Jokic who will make his teammates significantly better, because underrated fact about this Nuggets postseason, pretty much ran like a 7.5-man rotation for a majority of this postseason. So with that said, they have crippled their ability to get depth in defense, and that's what they needed. And they decided to spend $50 million on the one thing they didn't need. The reason this is a bad trade, and they might regret this, again, we don't know, but I'm just saying, more likely than not would regret it in my opinion. They are committing so much money to the same general areas of the floor, same general skill sets, and I don't think they have complementary skill sets. It's not as simple as you have 3-star players, therefore you get 3 stars worth of like easy offense or making life easier just because you have all those star players. Because if your star players do not have synergy, they're way less impactful together. Like, there is a huge difference between Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, and LeBron James, and Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. Those are complementary skill sets versus non-complementary. And just to lay out how this will be a bad move, let's actually compare it specifically to that Russell Westbrook trade. Now, to be clear, I think Bradley Beal will be a lot better in Phoenix than Russell Westbrook was in LA by like quite a substantial margin. But let's say Russell Westbrook was pretty good, like still like a 28-8 guy on the Lakers, and not as disastrous defensively and turnover wise. If that was the case, and then let's say in this hypothetical, all of the players that the Lakers traded for Russell Westbrook sucked. So let's just pretend KCP isn't one of the best role players in the league, and Kyle Kuzma hasn't averaged 20-8 since he's been in Washington, So they aren't good, and you trade all of that for a player who makes $50 million, who doesn't really complement and make LeBron James and Anthony Davis, or in this case, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, better. That's still a bad trade. It is still bad to dedicate $50 million to a player who is technically good, but doesn't make you nearly as much better as I think a lot of people would think. So my overarching point, Bradley Beal is really good. Devin Booker is really good. Kevin Durant is really good, but their really goods do not mesh. Is this a good motion? Does not mesh well. It will be more like these guys just taking turns isolating, the same as it was with Booker and Durant. Now having a third guy who can do it, sure, will make things a little bit easier, but ultimately it's not better offense, it's sure as hell not good defense, and it's sure as hell not depth. And I think we saw from this postseason run with the Denver Nuggets that those were what won, and instead of that, Phoenix has chosen to invest in names. And names do not win championships. Good basketball teams do. And by the way, if you're thinking like I'm being a huge hater for the Phoenix Suns, first of all, I am kind of a Kevin Durant hater. I will absolutely give you that. But I'm annoyed by this trade because I thought Phoenix could potentially build a championship team. I understand Chris Paul and Landry Shamet were not some great assets and they just shipped those away. Ultimately, they gave up not all that much. But by giving up technically not great assets, they gave up not great assets in order to create a huge problem for themselves. Regardless of how good Bradley Beal is, it's not what it's about. Sorry if this was a little incoherent. I definitely felt myself losing the tangent as I was going along here, but it's really late and I recorded this off of the dome. So yeah, shout out to Rudy for editing this video, especially as late as it is. And yeah, that's it. Goodbye.